Special.
Good evening, everyone.
10 minutes.
I'd like to, at this time, go ahead and call this Board of Education meeting to order for the December the 13th, 2018. First item on our agenda is, I think we have Mr. Marty Paramore, Clerk of Court, to come forward. I think he's got some swearing in of newly elected board members he needs to get done. Come forward, sir.
Thank you. And those folks that are, you know who you are, step forward, please.
Do we bring our own Bible with us? Or?
I've got, if anybody needs a Bible, I have one.
You got one?
We may have to share, and that's a good
I didn't know if
thing.
we could afford one around here.
Budget's tight.
That's why I said I didn't know if we could afford all of it. Sure. Double hands. Well, we hold them all in with us.
The secret is so holy about.
Around there, is that, or you missed it? So if you place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand. There you go. That
It's
looks
kind of hard when you ain't got two hands.
Do each of you
You'll follow
solemnly
it.
and sincerely swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and that you will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of North Carolina and to the constitutional powers and authorities which are or may be established for the government thereof, and that you will endeavor to support, maintain, and defend the Constitution of said state, not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States, to the best of your knowledge and ability, so help you God. The second part. Do each of you swear that you will well and truly execute the duties of your office as a member of the Butler County Board of Education according to the best of your skill and ability, according to law, so help you God. Thank you for your service. And thank y'all for calling me. It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next item on our agenda is the board officer elections. And before we do that, I would just like to say a couple of things, if that's okay. I would just like to thank the board for giving me the opportunity to serve as chair this year. Even though this year has not been anything but normal. First off, the resignation of Superintendent Don Phipps, then the sudden death of our friend and fellow board member Barbara Boyd Williams. This board had the task to interview prospective applicants to fill that board seat, in which we did by selecting Mr. T.W. Allen. Thank you for filling that vacancy. While all that was going on, we were receiving 47 applications from 11 different states from very outstanding educators that wanted the opportunity to lead this system. We narrowed that 47 down to 9 to be interviewed. This is a very time-consuming task, but we met the challenge and we did an outstanding job. I think this board did an outstanding job representing the citizens of this county. Lord have mercy. Sorry about that. I didn't know that was on. Excuse me. Okay. It was a very time-consuming task, but this board met the challenge in picking and representing the citizens of this county, and we finally selected an outstanding educator to be our next superintendent, Mr. Matthew Cheeseman, who will be on board in this county starting on January 2nd, and we want to wish him very, very well in his new job. At this time, I would like to call on Mr. Doon to conduct the elections of board officers. Sorry about that.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
As you know, annually we elect a chairperson and vice chair, and I have the pleasure of operating the election for chair. First thing I would do is ask for nominations for chairman of the Board of Education.
I nominate Carolyn Walker.
I nominate Butch Oliver.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? Do I have
Mr.
a,
Super, I move that we close the nomination on the said two names.
do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Booth and Ms. Peet, all in favor? To close nominations?
Aye.
Okay. All right. So our candidates are Ms. Walker and Mr. Oliver. All right. All right. By a show of hands, all those in favor of Ms. Walker? By a show of hands, all those in favor of Mr. Oliver? If my math is correct, Ms. Walker has been elected chair.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I have big shoes to fill. But we will continue to vote as individual board members, so we all have the same vote and the same amount of power to move Beaufort County Schools forward, and that's what we hope to do. I now want to open the elections up for vice chair.
I nominate Michael Billbrook.
Madam Chair, I nominate Terry Draper.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? Can I entertain a motion to close the nominations?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, all those in favor of Michael Billbrook, raise your right hand. All those in favor of Mr. Draper, raise your right hand. My math is like Mr. Doan's, 5-4. So, Michael, welcome to being our vice chair.
Thank you. Madam Chair, would you like to sing?
I would love for you to stay right where you are for the rest of the meeting, both of
Do
you.
you want this seat? I mean, you welcome.
No, I'm fine.
That had to move the computer.
Temperature's just a little bit warmer here.
Back home.
Miss Booth is always cold, so we're going to let her stay right there for the rest of this meeting. And thank you both for a wonderful job. And as Max said, he led us through some troubled waters this year, and we are very, very grateful for that. And hopefully, he will continue to help us move through waters that are still moving and still churning. Now I need a motion to approve the agenda. Second by Terry? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carried. Our next, yes, oh, please, yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention something at the beginning of the meeting, and I wanted, on behalf of the board, offer our condolences to the William Warren family. I think everyone here, and probably watching, a lot of them know, Mr. Warren was a board member here for about 8 years, I believe. His son, Tracy, they're very involved in the schools, and his wife, Carol. And I think Mac already mentioned, we lost one current board member this past year. Now we've lost another one in the last couple of days. So just let them know we're thinking about them and praying for them, and they'll get through this. But Mr. William was a very likable guy. If you ever talk to him, you just had a wonderful time talking to him. Quite the guy, wasn't he, Matt? Quite
Yes,
the
sir.
man. And he served the county well in his role. So want to let them know that we're thinking about him. Thank
Yes,
you.
their family has been a downtown fixture in Washington for years, so our prayers are with them. We're going to move on to our first action item, which is the academic progress presentation. And Mr. Doan, there is an order. Is this correct?
There is, so we're going to immediately change that order.
Thank you for confusing me from.
Absolutely.
Okay. I'm going to let you tell
All right.
us what's going on.
We, actually, we're going to have, Ms. Gibbs has a band concert tonight, so her colleagues have graciously allowed her to skip to the front of the line and go first. She's also going to set the bar, so.
That's right, that's right.
So, if you have in your board docs, and then also on the screen behind us, you'll see the presentations. And I'll let Ms. Gibbs start from there. While she's getting set up, what you have tonight are the academic presentations from each school, almost every school in Beaufort County. We'll have 3 remaining next week for that meeting. At that time, I will ask for a motion to approve all the school improvement plans. I just wanted to wait till everybody got a chance to present before we did that. So you don't have the school improvement plans yet. You will have them by Tuesday. And then after those 3 presentations, that'll finish up all the academic progress presentations, and we can vote on school improvement plans for the year. Okay?
So we're not going to need to vote on this tonight.
No,
even though
there's
it's
no
an action
vote.
item, we're not really going
Yes,
to.
that's right. It really should have been no action, my bad.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
Public website where they can see it too. I didn't know. kind of threw me. That's the first time I've seen that.
Should be the same thing on both of them.
It was, that's why I was reading it.
Like it's got my iPad.
You know what?
You're not even listening.
That's what threw me a little.
I didn't have it linked up to my phone because I don't know what their password is for this thing.
Yes.
Oh, yes. I don't know if I need to follow them here
Well,
anymore.
there's your daughter.
Yeah, she finally got here a little late. Yeah, she probably got that shot somewhere. That girl shot
Technical difficulties. Yeah.
IT rules the world. IT rules the world.
Yeah, it does.
It will momentarily be on the screen behind you, but in the moment,
May have to do it old school. Have an hand.
We just hold it up.
Bill Gates.
Hold it up like this.
That's right.
Y'all see that?
Yeah, we have it on our screens, Ms. Gibbs, so it's not to hold you up. Mark, do you mind if we let her
No,
move
ma'am.
ahead?
And I always bring a hard copy, so.
There you go.
All
All
right.
right, we're good.
Again, we're gonna start, the first presentation slide is our 2017-18 year in review. And our overall school performance grade was a C. Our reading performance grade was also a C, and our math grade was a C. Our overall school growth index this year was a negative 1.02. Anything less than a 2 means that you met growth, so we did meet growth this year. Now, with our reading growth index, it was a negative 2.47. So we didn't meet growth in reading, but we did exceed growth in math with an index of 3.37. If you look at the next slide, what I would like to do is talk about the 3-year comparison. And the reason why I want to do this is because I want to look at when I first started at Chalkawinda Middle School. So if you look at our first year, 2015-16, our growth index was a negative 7.94, and we did not meet growth. Not only did we not meet growth, our overall school performance grade was a D. Our reading grade was a D, our math grade was a D. So at that time, we were identified as a low-performing school. So at that point, we had to have some very, very serious conversations with our staff. We had to make some serious changes. We did a lot of things to motivate our staff, to improve our morale, motivate our students. So if you look at that next year, in 2016-17, we still did not meet growth, but we went from a negative 7.94 to a negative 2.16. So we showed some improvement. Still didn't meet growth, but we're getting there. Our overall school performance grade went up to a C. Our reading grade went up to a C, and our math grade went up to a C. And at that time, we were kind of removed from the low performance school list, was kind of watched. So we had some things that were working, that was progressing, but we didn't meet growth. But if you see in the 17-18 school year what we did, and I talked about that on the first slide, we did meet growth. So I want to show that since I've been at Chalkawinda Middle School, we have made a lot of progress. We still have progress to make, but we are showing improvement. So that's a good thing. When we look at our academic achievements that we have, again, there's a 3-year positive trend over our school improvement progress. We also want to look at the proficiency since last school year that has increased. In our areas of 6th, 7th, and 8th grade reading, the proficiency increased, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade math, as well as 8th grade science. We had 100% proficient in our math 1 end of course test. And when we look at our tested areas according to Beaufort County schools, we were tested in 11 categories, and we were above the Beaufort County school proficiency average in 11 out of 11 categories. We were the highest in the county for our 6th grade reading proficiency at 76.5, and also for our 8th grade math proficiency at 64.6. Also, some other academic achievements that we did accomplish. When we look at how we compare to the state average, 6 out of the 11 tested categories were above the state average. It was 5th grade science, 6th and 7th grade reading, as well as 6th, 7th, and 8th grade math. Some of our other victories that we want to note is that we have improved our school culture and climate. For some reason, I can remember this number. When I first started at Chalkawinda Middle School, we had 14 new staff members, that include administration. So we had some morale issues. So I feel like we have definitely done a good job improving our school culture and climate. I feel like we all have a shared vision. We're all working for one common goal, which is improve student progress. So I feel like we're rowing the same way in the same boat. We provided frequent motivation for our students for academic and behavioral progress and achievements. We started to have some fun at school. The kids need to have fun. I know one year, the first year, if we talked with the students, if they made progress, we had teachers that would do graciously take a pie in the face. I actually took it too. I told the kids the second year, I said if we do well, make progress, they would be able to take me to the wall, and we were taped to the wall. Now this year we haven't decided what we're going to do, but the kids actually came up, and it really motivated the students, so that was a good thing. We had high quality professional development for our teachers because we had Title I funds, so that actually helped us out a lot, as well as being able to have support materials based on Title I funds for math, reading, and social studies. Areas of concern. Our biggest area of concern is still the reading, because we did not reach growth in reading, so that is still a concern. When we break that down, we still have concerns for student growth in 5th and 8th grade reading, as well as student growth in 5th and 8th grade science. We're also concerned about proficiency in certain subgroups, especially students with disabilities. Our student attendance is also a concern. We do have a plan in place where if the students are absent so many days, the first contact is by a teacher, the second contact is by the school counselor, the third contact, I will have a meeting with the parent, the student, to try to see if we can improve those attendance. So we do have a plan in place to hopefully improve attendance. Another concern is retaining high quality teachers in core subject areas, and I think that's a concern at every school. For our school, it seems to be English language arts teachers and exceptional children's teachers. Right now, we just hired a new English language art teacher, so we've had a sub in there since November, and right now we're still looking for exceptional teachers, so that is a concern. And also continued support for our beginning and lateral entry teachers to help them stay in the education profession. Where do we go from here? That is our plan. We want to continue to use our Title I funds to employ a literacy coach. This year we did hire a literacy coach to work on interventions to help students who are struggling with reading. So that was a big part of our money. To strengthen mentoring program in our school with the support of positive behavior intervention and support. Every staff member, including any staff, custodians, is working with a student that we feel like is at risk, whether it's academically or behaviorally. To continue our partnership with the Cornerstone After School program, we have about 40 students that stay after school that works on remediation, homework, STEM, so we're still partnering with the after school program. To schedule teachers in areas where they have strengths based on content. So we've actually changed some schedules with teachers about what they're teaching based on their data and test scores. We do have a flex period at the end of the day, a instructional day, where we work on remediation enrichment about 42 minutes. Usually the first 9 weeks we do a one school, one book that works on character traits. The second and third 9 weeks we use the data, maybe NC check-ins, are ready to offer tutoring for reading or math. And then the last 9 weeks is total integrate shutdown. So we're remediating for reading, for math, and for science. And also using the data to guide school-based decisions to ensure quality instruction. So we are doing all of that. And that is my presentation. Are there any questions?
Very good.
Very good.
One,
Thank you very much.
two. Oh,
Thank you
that's
so much.
great.
Enjoy.
Going first was a good thing. Thank you.
Yeah. Continue to improve.
Yep.
Thank you.
Good evening. How's everybody doing? I hope you're doing well. Gives me a great opportunity to brag about some things that are going on at Northside, and also look for assistance in correcting some problems that we have that have recently come to light. So I'm a movie buff, so my slides are named The Good, The Bad, and The Ugly. So the good, our biology went up 10%. We spent a great deal of time spent working on biology, trying to improve those results, and it paid off. And now, of course, biology is not going to count into the growth index. So all that work kind of was pushed to the wayside a little bit. So then our English scores, our English 2 scores also went up almost 2%. So we were pleased with those results as well. More good. Math went up almost 8%, went 51%, and then our growth index went up 9%. We have not met growth in 5 years, but at least we're moving in the right direction. That is one area that we do have to address. One thing we've talked about a lot is not becoming complacent. We've kind of had a lot of success in a lot of areas, and we've been proud of the results that we've had, but I do think we've kind of developed a little sense of complacency, and we're working very hard to change that, including myself. So for the bad, the 4-year graduation rate, we dropped 7%. We did have some IDMO kids in there that counted against us because those students don't earn regular diplomas, and they automatically count against you once they've been in high school for 4 years. So that's one area that but we're very thankful to have those kids. They enrich our lives every day. I think those of you that attended Stepping Out would agree with that. Those kids do an outstanding job, and we're very pleased to have them in our school. ACT work keys took a slight dip, but 78%, we're still pretty proud of that. ACT results, this is the area that we have identified as a major need. We're in 15-16, you see we were at 66.7%. We were one of the highest traditional high schools in the state of North Carolina. And then we slipped just a little bit to 64%, and then this past year we slipped a lot. So we're hoping that this coming year with the junior class that we have, we're expecting much better results with the group that we have now. Like I mentioned to you before, we haven't met growth in 5 years, but we did have a 9% increase from the previous year, so we were pleased with that. Some other concerning trends, I got stuck up here last year, so I'm not going to beat this dead horse, but you see our student enrollment is going down, and those 2 schools are pulling from our attendance area. We had, between the 2 8th grade classes at Northeast and Bath, there were 40 students that took Math 1 in 8th grade last year. Out of those 40 students, 19 of them chose to go to either the early college or NERSBA. So we're losing some of our better students to those 2 schools, and that is a trend that I have got to figure out how to fix. I don't know if it's a community issue, a hearsay issue, but that's something that we are working very hard to fix, and we've hopefully come up with a couple ideas that will help with that issue. So to address our ACT need, we have developed an advisor-advisee period. Well, not developed, but maybe revamped. We are spending a lot of time on the ACT, time management skills, exposing these kids to exactly what the ACT and the pre-ACT are all about. What tests are they really taking? What strategies can they use to improve those results? Because a lot of these kids are looking to go to college, and these tests have a big impact on what college they're going to be accepted to. So we spend a lot of time on time management, because one of the biggest things about ACT is answer every question. Also, how much time do you have for each section? So those are some things that we've worked on, and we're going to continue to work on. Career Day, this will be the 30th graduating class of Northside High School. For those of you Beaufort County lifers, that's kind of hard to believe that it's been there for 30 years, but this will be the 30th graduating class. So we said, what's some things that we can kind of do differently that we have never done before? And as far as I know, Northside's never had a career day, and definitely haven't had a career day where they're bringing in Northside graduates. So we're hoping everyone that we can bring in to meet the needs of the students, that we did a survey of all the students to see what careers they were interested in, first, second, and third choice. And now we're going to try to find Northside graduates that walk those halls, that are doing those jobs, and come and talk to those kids about what kind of requirements are needed, what do they need to be doing, what can they do differently than they're doing now. All of those kind of conversations we're hoping we're going to take place, and that's going to be February the 15th. So you're welcome to attend at 8:30. We're also going to have an ACT boot camp. We're going to hire substitutes for our core teachers, math, science, and English, and we're going to reschedule our juniors for 2 days, the 2 weeks prior to the ACT. And we're going to send them to a math class, an English class, and a science class to focus on some last-minute strategies both of those days. And they're going to spend time with those teachers and work on some last-minute strategies to try to improve those ACT results. Also, we do require ACT question of the day in every class, and we've made some personnel changes in some of these classes. So probably the one that I'm most excited about, and I've talked to Mr. Clinkscales and I've talked to Mr. Peck about this, we're emailed anyway, and we're going to bring the 8th graders over for an entire day. We're going to match them with either a sophomore or a junior, and they're going to spend the entire day at Northside. They're going to follow that kid's schedule. They're going to do it early enough so if they're interested in college classes while they're still in high school, we're going to assign them to a high school kid that is taking college classes on campus. And they're going to follow that kid's schedule all day. They're going to eat lunch in the cafeteria. They're going to go to break with those kids. And then once they get there as a freshman, then that student is going to be their buddy student. And so if they have questions about where's my second period class, how do I get to this? How do I type in my lunch number, or whatever kind of problems they have, kind of like we do with a mentor teacher. So we are very excited about this. This is an idea that I think is going to be a great way to help bring these kids to Northside, get them interested in what we're doing, and see the great things that are going on. Just some of the things that, because you cannot measure now this is coming from a math person, it's hard to believe I'm saying this, but you can't measure everything by a test. We had Battle of the Arts Saturday night, the most participation we've had since I've been there. We had, which is kind of like stunt night. We had the band concert last Thursday night, an outstanding performance by them. We had the dance recital last night, a huge group of kids participating, and the IDMO kids actively involved in those classes. And to see those kids participate in those events, not to mention beating Riverside in a packed gym the other night, that was also exciting. So there are a lot of great things going on at Northside. I do know we have some areas to work on, but I'm going to do my best, and the faculty and staff at Northside and the students at Northside are going to do their best to make Beaufort County Schools proud of Northside High School. With that said, I think that's it.
Well, we are proud of Northside High School, but I think your idea about the 8th grade students, you've never done that before.
Never done that.
I think that's phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll grab them before the other people do.
That's what I'm hoping.
That's what I was thinking too.
That's
what I'm
great.
hoping.
Go somewhere else.
Yeah, because I think if they actually see what's going on there, it's going to make a difference. Because they come for a tour now, but they don't get a whole lot out of that.
That's not the life of the day.
We're going to do Northeast one day, and then we're going to hopefully work out any kinks, and then we're going to bring Bath in with a day in between. That's the plan anyway.
I think that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Let me know if I can help you out on career day.
That'd be great. Be great. Your name has come up several times.
Let me know.
Any questions? All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark.
do it because I didn't graduate from
We may give him some help on that.
I did.
I know I'm a year out. I'm like,
We may give him help on somebody taking his stupid.
That's right.
And sometimes
Hers went, what, 6 maybe? So
You're going down the list.
Yes, sir. We're back on track now.
You just jumped one. That pool projector has some color. That's a projector has some color.
6 o'clock time here. Just makes time if I fast forward.
Good evening. I'm going to start off, we're just going to go over some EOG data. This summer, I sat down, I actually had an intern, and she helped me out a whole lot. I'm making graphs, and we probably made about 25 graphs and showing information in different ways to share with my SIT team. And we're going to go through those 25 here, and I'm just playing. I narrowed it down to about 9.
I was gonna say, did
We
I miss
knew you were
something?
playing. Yeah, we got the presentation since 10.
This first one right here shows my EOG reading comparison by grade level. I also did a graph. The next one you'll see is by cohort, because I think it's important to follow not just what we're doing as a grade level from year to year, but that cohort of students. Do they grow from 3rd grade to 4th grade? If you look at by grade level, we're doing some good things because all but one grade went up. In the 4th grade, it didn't go up, but they still made growth. So that's an important thing to look at. When you look at cohorts, so that 4th grade group right there, The first one is where they were in third grade for reading, and that's where they finished in fourth grade. So they're growing. I've got fifth grade. If you look, it did not grow from fourth grade to fifth grade. I think that's about statewide. I'm not 100% sure what happens in fifth grade if the test is so harder, but I'm doing some research and some things just to try to see what it is about fifth grade and why it's so hard. I also had a new teacher doing fifth grade language arts that came from the high school, and she's doing great things, but it was a big curve for her to go from high school students to fifth graders. And this right here I wanted to do to show where we were proficient with our standards. Okay, and you've got the three different strands. You have language, you have reading literature, and then you have informational reading. And what that graph shows us is pretty much across all grade levels that nonfiction text is what we were struggling on the most. So we've got some strategies in place, making sure we're getting some more nonfiction into the students' hands through the library and through Wit and Wisdom, and printing those nonfiction passages that comes with it, and making sure we're doing good instruction there. Our math, this is by grade level. If you look at our math, we're doing good things in math, but math is kind of our weak point. Our reading scores were higher than our math scores. If you look at fourth grade as a grade level, again, it did not grow. But eighth grade, I was real proud of that, because our eighth grade, if you go back several years, even before I got there, it was low, and it's on a rising trend. So we're doing good things there. And this is by cohort. And again, you look at fifth grade. Well, I don't know what it is, but we're going to figure it out. We're doing some good things all the way across the board. And this is our standard comparison. I got two graphs here. One's third through fifth, and then I have a sixth through eighth one, because the standards change a little bit. And again, this is just like reading, so that we can possibly look and see what standard going across the board are we not meeting. And then we really looked at these graphs as a sit team and just discuss strategies and what can we do to hit these standards that we're a little low on. And there's your 6th through 8th grade. If you look at number systems for 8th grade, that's 9.1% proficient. But if you go look at how much of the test that is, this amounts to like 2 questions. So if a student gets one right and one wrong, they're not proficient in that. So it's really not tested in 8th grade for number systems very well. This is our EVOS growth. It's a 2-year comparison. Your first 2 bars are for all growth. So the year before I got there, we did not meet growth. That's that red bar going all the way down. And last year, we went to a positive 1.23. So we're moving in the right direction. Hopefully we will maintain that with all the positive things that we have going on in Bath. The other ones are, the first one is reading, I believe, and the next one is math. No, vice versa, math and then reading. You can see we did not grow. It's red because we did not meet growth in math the year before I got there, and now we're on a positive trend. And then in reading, we did meet growth even though it's below the bar, but it's not below that -2 mark. But as an educator, we're perfectionists. We don't want to see things below the bar. This year, we were above the bar. So I want to finish just talking about some strengths and some celebrations and some things that we have going on. I could talk to you about programs all day long, but we all know a program is as good as the teacher that's teaching it. So we do have some good programs in place, and we're monitoring them, and we're making changes and making them our own and making sure we're meeting the needs of our students. But a big celebration is that we met growth this year. When I got there, the year before, we were a C school. This year, we moved back to a B school. One of the biggest things that I have done with a lot of help, because it's hard with a K-8 school, was to revise a schedule and make a master schedule. When I got there was no master schedule. Teachers did not have common planning times. It was not consistent, and we sat down and I came up with an idea to really truly make it work. 4th through 8th grade, they have 5 periods now, and we implemented club classes. So what that is for 7th and 8th graders, I went to the teachers and I told them, hey, let's come up with something different. Let's make this class period so our band students don't get pulled out of core classes, and then we have something else for our other students to do. I said, get creative. I want you to have fun with it. Let's step outside of your box. If you like knitting and you want to have a knitting class, let's do it. So we came up with course descriptions and let the kids register for them just like they do high school. We've got line dancing, science club, intro to film, where they got a green screen and they're actually making commercials, just a whole lot of different things. And the kids love it, and they're having a good time. And the teachers actually love it. It's a break from what they do every day. We have a first aid class. All 8th grade students have to go through that because they're required to do CPR. So 8th grade does do that. We had an ambulance out there today. So they're doing good things. We have scheduled remediation time now for 4th through, well, actually 3rd through 6th grade, first thing in the morning from 8 to 8:45. We get all of our AIG pullouts done during that time, so we're not necessarily taking them out of math. So we're getting our pullouts done during that time, and we're able to work with our struggling students. We have added a new STEM class for our 6th through 8th grades as part of their electives that they go to, just like they go to PE. We've started to do student and teacher recognition. So we have recognition ceremonies for AB Honor Roll and Courage Awards each 9 weeks for the student. And we do a Pirate of the Month. 2 teachers get a trophy that we pass at our staff meetings. They're actually bobbleheads. They're kind of cool. We have PBIS is going really well. It's really forming a family atmosphere. We changed a little bit from last year to this year. We have a game room in our cafeteria that students can earn for positive behavior and good things in the classroom for the last 10 minutes of their lunch. Once they're done eating, they can go play air hockey or foosball or basketball. We have grade level and department meetings weekly. We have data meetings. After Christmas, we're going to start tutoring Tuesdays, where we will use EVOS and classroom data to actually pick students and invite them to stay. And then one thing about Bath is the parent and community support is great, and we couldn't do a lot of the stuff without them. So do we have some things that we're working on? Yes, but we're going to continue to work on them as a team. Any questions?
Thanks, sir.
Good.
Thank you. Looks like you're going in the right direction.
We're trying.
Am I recording or do I just hit that button? Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, the first few slides you're going to see, that's just us. The next talks about how we're made up, pre-K through 4th. I do this every time just to kind of show you where we are. Everything's the same except we do not have 3 reading teachers anymore. Because of cuts, we only have 2, and that 3rd one had to go into a classroom. Our classroom initiatives are the same. We have added iReady, which is a county initiative that we use for our core, for our diagnostic screener. Wit and Wisdom we use in kindergarten. 1st grade is doing a little bit of that this year, along with some other resources, as well as fourth grade. These are interventions that we use each year. We're continuing to use our tutors in third and fourth grade. Our encore teachers, which is art, music, PE, and the computer lab, we pull them when they do not have a class and they are assigned second, third, and fourth, and they go and remediate. We also have some parents this year who have become very regular in coming and tutoring in the classrooms, which is new for us. Okay, this is where we get into our data. This is our DIBELS data. So these are the results of your kinder, first, second, and third. DIBELS composite proficiency starting from 2012 to 2013 all the way to last year. That's your first group. We're always above 80% there. DIBELS are your first sound fluency, being able to use those strategies when you're reading, sounding out the words, chunking the words, those things, the things that you have to know to be able to read. The other side to the right, that's your TRC proficiency, and that is when you're required to read a book and then retell the book. And you also have to do written questions to the book. Now, when you're in kindergarten, you're on grade level when you get a D. You don't start answering written questions until you're on an F for this data. And as you can see, our K-3 teachers do a really good job with this. They use the Jan Richardson model for guided reading. Our reading recovery teachers are experts on it. They train every year. They do a refresher. Anyone new that comes in, they train them. They go and observe them and give them pointers. We have a new kindergarten teacher this year, and they go in there at least once a week. And she's feeling at ease and actually had a really good lesson yesterday. So they are great support for our folks. But this year, you're going to see a little something different when we do these next year, because we were giving by the state superintendent new books this year. We got Atlas books, so we're not using our old books from our M-class assessments. We're using new books, and the written part is not required. So before, when I could read, say, an M, but I couldn't answer the M questions, I went back down. Even though I could read the book, it put me back down. And these proficiency scores that you're seeing up here are with the written portion. I believe these are going to go up a lot because the written portion does not count. So now if I read an M, but I can't answer the questions, I keep going. This is going to be interesting. However, we met with curriculum this summer, all the elementary folks, and we decided we wanted to keep the written part because before we weren't teaching writing like we are now to answer those questions and be able to respond to text. So we don't want to take that away. So as the principals met with Mrs. Phipps, Mrs. Brantley, and Mrs. Lilly, and we just thought it would be best. We know it's not going to hold the children back at all. We're following what is expected, but we're keeping the writing piece in and using that to guide our instruction and guide our reading groups. Okay, the next slide is our end of grade proficiency gains, and the first two sections graphs are reading and math for third grade, the last two reading and math for fourth grade, and it goes from 2012-13 to current. We are a B school. We have continued to meet growth. However, when they go to fourth grade, our growth, like you heard them say, that below a -2 is when you start not meeting growth. We're getting close to there. I didn't put your numbers for you, but if you look back in 2013-14, I can just kind of tell you that fourth grade in reading, they grew 2 points. So the third graders, and that's looking at cohorts, because that's really what you need to be looking at, because each group of children are different. So the cohort there, from third grade to fourth grade, they grew 2 points in reading. The next year, from third grade to fourth grade, they grew 6 points in reading. Then, in 2015-16, that cohort of children went down 7 points in reading. The next year, they grew 1 point in reading, and then they went down again 1 point. So it's been kind of inconsistent. If you did the math, you would see, and that's probably how I should have put that up there for you. And if you look at the math part, same thing. They started out plus 11 from the cohort of 12-13 to the cohort of 13-14. They grew 11 points. And then they started slipping a little bit. The major difference was in the year 2015-16, we only had 2 teachers that had been there, Cameron Hill and Monica Smith. 2 of our teachers left and went to Greenville because they live in Pitt County. So we hired a teacher from out of state. She stayed with us 2 years. She lives in Bath now. She's with Mr. Peg. I don't blame her. I would want to move to where I live. So we have, and it was a year he left too, by the way. I don't think he took her or anything like that. But, so anyway, so now we currently had 2 teachers still with all the other ones that were new. And we got an intern half the year, so she came in, she took over a class, fresh out of 2nd grade to 4th grade, was not her niche. So moved her to kindergarten. I'm so happy to say kindergarten is her game. She is a teacher leader, doing a great job. I can't speak enough for how much she's grown. You know, you got to find your spot. So we are currently in 4th grade trying to build capacity with who we have with new people and getting the knowledge, because there is a learning curve when you come in. And that, let me click down, I'm sorry. That's where I want to take us. And we're still meeting growth. We're still a B school, but we want to keep growing and not slipping. So we meet all the time. We have data meetings. We've always had data meetings. We're continuing to amp up our data meetings. Also, to help with this problem, last year, 3rd and 4th grade started student data notebooks, and I met with every child and every teacher, and we went over the data. This year, we made that school-wide, so even kinders have a data notebook, and it'll move up with them. And we had parents come out, and we did it from 1 to 6. See, do y'all remember back in the days when we had conference days? Mm-hmm. And we don't have those anymore. And we can't get parents, we have done so many things to get parents out to school. We have Title I parent involvement money, so we'll feed them and do all kinds of stuff, but it's still, you're getting your same parents. We can't get the ones we need. Well, I think we finally found it with these student data notebooks. So we did 10-minute time slots for meetings, and the grade levels worked it out. So we started at 1, and we were able to use our special area teachers for coverage, so when they could meet, they could do it confidentially. And they had the things that they try, the things they work on, whether it be Lexia, their AR, their end of grade, like what they did in 3rd or what they did in 4th, their iReady diagnostic, all those things. And they led the conference with their teacher there facilitating. The student led the conference, and y'all, we had just about 100% show up that day. So I think we found our ticket there. And we are going to continue that by doing another day in the spring, and the parents loved it. And it also helped teachers not having to stay so late with nightly things trying to get them out there. You know, it was a 1 day, 1 to 6, and they came. Parents all over the place. So that's one thing we're doing. Also, we are planning, looking at the way we're planning, because we have 3 BTs in 4th grade. They need a lot of support. So we have 3rd grade and 4th grade have done some planning together and modeled, and we're constantly reviewing and updating and having those conversations to see how we can support them, because it is hard and it is scary to go in and know the expectation, because as sad as it is, we're judged on how we do. And you try not to harp on that, but everyone knows we're judged on how we do. We have implemented peer observations. This semester, they go and we assigned someone for them to observe. They fill out the sheet, and it's, what did I see? What can I use in my classroom? What questions do I have? That's been great. So they did that, and next semester they pick who they want to do. We always talk about doing these little educational rounds, but you get so caught up in life, you don't do it. So we put it on the calendar. We're also doing vertical planning with the grade below, the grade above, which also incorporates with CMS. We're planning with the 5th grade teachers. That's been great. Our reading specialists, instead, they used to just work up till 3rd grade. But we saw a lot of growth with those kids that they worked with last year, and we moved them to 4th grade. They're also working with 4th grade now, which took some support from the 2nd grade teachers, but we're having to fill in some areas. We were able, this year, our celebration was we sent our new people that we had gotten since our RCA trip, we were able to send them to RCA. Let's see, another struggle that I don't know that we'll ever get over, y'all, is we do not have an AIG teacher. We haven't had one since last year. Our teachers, they do extension activities, but it's still not the same. They have a lot on their plate. My kids that are identified AIG, or the kids in the lower grades that could go out to get some enrichment, they don't get that anymore because we don't have anyone. And we did share that person with CMS, so Ms. Gibbs doesn't have anyone either. And we would love to have one. Brave of the Month, this is a way that our teachers, kind of like his Pirates of the Month, we nominate each other, and we read it out, we make a big deal about it at our staff meetings, and then one is chosen for Brave of the Month. If you follow us on Facebook or Instagram, you saw Coach John Lampkins was our Brave of the Month this week. We did that on Monday, I believe. And then everyone gets a little gift. Pre-K. And this goes away from testing, really, but pre-K, we have 2 classrooms, and they go to kindergarten. Well, we know that children qualify for pre-K because they need emotional and social support. But we also want them to be ready for kindergarten. So we've included our pre-K teachers in all of our data meetings and the language that we're using, because they don't get that because they use creative curriculum. And in recent meetings with parents, the comment came up, well, I didn't know kindergarten was going to be like this. So we had 2 dates. We had one in November and one in December where we had pre-K parents come, and they observed in kindergarten classrooms, and then they debriefed with the teachers so they could ask questions. And we're going to do 2 more dates in the spring so they can see how much the kinders have grown, just so they can get an idea and be ready for that change, because it is a big change from pre-K to kinder. And I believe that's all I have. Do y'all have any questions?
I'll make a comment, just real quick. On the AIG piece, that's a piece that comes up when I have conversations with people from the school occasionally. So don't give up on that. Matter of fact, when it's after the first year and we start having the budget discussions, be sure that's brought back up again, especially with our new superintendent, because I think there's going to be some creative ideas kicking around on how to handle some of that stuff.
Well, and we have the money for the position.
But
there's
still, we got to find them.
Yeah,
Right, it's been posted since we.
We just can't find them, and that's another challenge too.
We
It's
got to
just
figure it out,
finding some good people.
because that's a segment of students we don't need to let go.
Right.
I think one of the things that we're hearing over and over, and we heard this from our principals at the last time there was presentation, is that one of the most important factors that seems to affect data the most is teacher placement.
Yeah.
And so I applaud you principals, because that is a struggle, because you may have a teacher that's been teaching 4th grade for 10 years and thinks that he or she has found their niche, but as a principal you have to do the hard thing and go, no, you really haven't. And
or just to make some changes.
Right.
To what
I think something else could happen here. So I applaud. I know that's got to be tough, but are you trying to show?
I'm not trying to do anything.
You're doing it.
I just got this new phone, and my watch and the phone are not talking very well together.
Got a mind of its own.
But anyway, that seems to be an overwhelming struggle for you all. And but I ask you to continue, because we've had some principals that, since they've made these moves, and it sounds like you've found this out too, they have seen success. You know, they have seen these teachers take off. So
Well, and I think also just keeping that open line of communication and interns coming in, because there's just hard to find folks these days.
Oh, I agree. But
So we're
we can
continuing
do
to do that,
We're going to
having
find a way to
interns.
do it.
thank
You
you.
good?
New day coming.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever that means.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can't give up on it.
I don't think you will. I think you're going to be on time.
Okay.
Can I not follow Alicia next year? Okay. All right, thank you. Good evening. I want to first of all start off by just saying how happy I am to be back. I'm really enjoying myself at Southside, and it feels like being at home again, and so I'm happy to be here. Happy to be talking about data and all of those things that most folks probably don't like to talk about. I'm going to start out talking about some results, and I'll go through these relatively quickly. Last year gave me a pretty unique perspective because of coming in at the tail end of the school year. There was no time to go in and start changing things or anything like that, so it really gave me an opportunity to be able to walk and observe and watch and see where I thought the strengths and the weaknesses were and kind of formulate a game plan moving forward. But we ended up the school year last year, and I've given you the 3-year trends here. Math 1, we finished at 51.1% proficient, which was almost an 11% gain, which was wonderful. That was something we were very happy with. English 2, we ended up at 39.8, which was 5.5 points down. And biology stayed about the same, 26.7, and that was a 1-point drop from the previous year. I have to tell you that when I left the school system, the scores were much different than they are right now. I was used to seeing things in the 80 and 90 percentile range, so when I got these scores, I just about had a heart attack. But we're going to keep on working on them. Our ACT score is another bright spot. We did go up 12 percentage points there, so we were at 54%. Work keys went down, and I've found that work keys, I think, is a little bit of a difficult situation because it's one of those tests that students don't get a grade for. And so oftentimes the students say, well, if I'm not getting a grade for it, I don't really care about it, and so they don't work hard at it. And so this is going to be something that we're going to have to try to move forward on for next year, is trying to make them understand that it's important for the school, and it's important for you down the road. You may earn a credential through this that will help you down the road. So that's something that we've got to work on, is making them understand all of these tests are important. Cohort graduation rate fell 1.7%. But again, here's our positive, that our gross score went up 16.1%. So we made tremendous growth there, and I was thrilled with that. We're going to continue to keep on getting better. What I wanted to show you next was, after we got all of these results, one of the things that I wanted to do with our teachers was I wanted to talk about exactly what these results mean. I don't think that you can move forward unless you have an accurate picture of where you are and what you're doing. So I spent the summer working through every teacher that taught an EOC, that taught an NCFE, that taught a CTE class, that gave any kind of a state test. I took their data and spent the summer disaggregating that data. And what you're looking at is the analysis of one of the teachers. This is, and I blacked out the name to keep it confidential, but that's one of our Math 1 teachers. And so what I gave them and what I went over with them was a breakdown so that they could see exactly how every student that took the Math 1 exam at Southside High School finished in terms of proficiency and what their overall mean score was. And then exactly what it took to be proficient in that course. And then I took it and broke it down by those subgroups. We looked at it by the racial subgroups and broke it down and did the comparisons. And you can see there that if it's red, then that means that that particular subgroup was not where it needed to be. It was either below the group mean or it was below course proficiency. If it was green, then that means that they were doing well with that particular subgroup. Then I took it and broke it down further by racial subgroups as well as gender subgroups, so that they could see just exactly what students are the ones that are performing. And really that is a reflective tool, so that I as a teacher can look back and see what students am I reaching and what ones am I not reaching. And I think that was an eye-opening experience for some of the teachers. But again, every course that was taught that had a state exam had an analysis like this that they looked at and that we went over to try to help them preparing for the next year. So with that, I also gave them a graphic, took that analysis and tried to give it to them also in a chart format, something that might be a little bit easier to understand. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. I don't want to get too far down in the weeds with it. But this is the same information, but it's given in a graphical format so that teachers can see where their racial subgroups were performing, if they were at or above the course proficiency, or if they were at or above what was needed the group mean. So it's just another way of looking at the same information to try to make it a little bit more meaningful. Our celebrations, though, that we had were that we made growth last year, which was a wonderful thing. My folks were very excited when they got that news. We moved from a D school to a C school, and so we celebrated that. That's a good thing. So with that, now we're trying to figure out where we're going to go. So now that we have an accurate picture of where we are, I also spent time this summer setting out goals for every teacher. Every teacher that was teaching a state test of any kind, if you were performing, if your scores were below 70%, you generally had a 10% increase that was your goal that would be expected for this upcoming year. If you were further below than that, as you can see biology was, I upped it because I think that there's so much room to grow and so much opportunity that I don't think that's expecting too much. But our goals for this year is biology. We want to be at 40% at the end of the year. Math 1, we want to be at 60%. And English 2, 50%. Those would be 13, 10, and 10% gains. Our ACT goals for this year is to move to 65%, which would be a 10% gain again. Work keys, I want to get it to 72%, which would be another 10% gain. And these may be lofty goals, but I think you have to set them high. Our cohort graduation rate, we're going to increase that from up to 87%, which would be a 5% increase. I've already told all of my kids, and I've told the parents as well, that dropping out is not an option because I refuse to sign the paperwork. I'm just not going to do it. No, I'm not going to do it. So they might as well come on to school. Our growth score, though, I want to see a 5% increase in that. I want to see that up to 78%. And our goal that we've talked about is to move from a C school to a B school. We want to do that, and I think that's very attainable. So, I think probably what you folks are most most interested in is how we're going to get there. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to increase rigor in the classroom. As I walked around and watched, it seems to me that we've become so conscientious of making sure that we're teaching and we're reaching every student that a lot of times we're lowering our standards. We're not teaching at the level that we should be. And so what I said to the teachers is I want you to pick out the highest achieving student in the class, and I want you to teach to that level, and everybody else will get on board and they'll rise to that level, and we'll get there. Another thing that I saw was we've become, we're a one-to-one school. Every student has a Chromebook. We've become so reliant on the technology that oftentimes I think that we're allowing the computer to do the teaching for us. So I've said to them what I don't want to see students on the computers all the time. I want to come in the classroom and I want to see you up teaching, and I want to see direct instruction going on. I also saw last year that we, for whatever reason, got away from homework. I think that's the wrong way to go. I expect homework. There's nothing wrong with kids doing a little bit of work every night when they get home. It reinforces the concepts that we've taught throughout the day. Teachers said, well, what are we going to do if they didn't do it or they don't do it? I said, well, we're not going to give them a 0 because that lets them off the hook. I said, you call me, I'm going to come down and I'm going to get them, and I'm going to carry them down to ISS, and they'll sit there until they get it done. Not doing your homework is not an option. I don't know of a job that you can go to and look at your boss and say, I don't feel like doing that today. So they're going to do it. Hopefully they won't be too bullheaded about it, and they'll get it done and get on out of there quickly enough. Another big thing that I did this year, and I did this when I was at Southside in years past, was I made all of our EOCs that are standard level EOCs, I moved those to a year-long format. So we are teaching now in the fall to all of our standard level kids intro to biology, and then they'll take biology in the springtime. So it gives us more time to be able to get more in depth and really make sure that these kids are mastering all of these concepts. Brought back the concept of professional learning communities. To me, that's one of the things that I've seen that makes more sense than anything else, capitalizing on the knowledge and ability that you have already within the building. We are also looking at data more than I think my folks have been used to. I have required all classes to develop and administer what we call formative assessments every 4.5 weeks. Every class administers a test every 4.5 weeks. It should be cumulative so that we can measure and we can see what the students are gaining and what they're not. They are required then, I give them about a week's time, they're required to put together a data analysis of how those students did, and I'm going to show you that in just a minute. And then those students that are not passing those formative assessments, we have interventions that we use to try to get them back on board with the tutoring and all the things that you've heard other folks talk about as well. But another thing I'm excited about with the ACT is that we're going to do an ACT Blitz. I think Mr. Clark kind of alluded to that. He called it boot camp. We're calling it the Blitz. But every day, 2 weeks prior to us taking the ACT, our junior class is going to be divided into 4 groups, and they are going to be rotated during our flex time every day between a math, a science, a reading, and then also a language teacher that will work with them on language skills, but also test-taking skills. So we're hoping to see gains from that. I think that by rotating them through that, and we're going to try to provide some incentives for those that do well through that to make it a little bit more enjoyable and kind of build some excitement with that. The next slide I've given you is a copy of the data analysis tool that my teachers are doing with their formative assessments. You can see across the top, we list off all of the questions that are on the test, and they have to give me the standard that question is measuring. And then I've blacked out on the left side all of the student names down the left side, and then they go through, and if the student got that question right, they put a 1 in there. If they got it wrong, they put a 0 in there. And then you can see at the bottom, it starts to total how many students got that question correct, how many got it incorrect, and probably more importantly is the next slide. I asked them to then go ahead and take that information, and they have to break it down and give me the mean for each of their subgroups, so that I know how their various, and they know, more importantly, how their various subgroups are performing on that formative assessment. Then I require them to list out the names of all of the students that score below 80%. I want to know who they are. I want to know all of the questions that were the standards that were below 80% for the class. And then I require them to tell me what they are planning to do to remediate each of those students and then each of those standards for the class. This is a lot of work on the teachers, but I think that it's going to bear fruit. But those are the things that we are doing. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Rick, what's your student enrollment?
We're about 420. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Rick. That's some awesome data right there.
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
Impressive.
That was some time. It's pretty simple to read. I mean,
It's not hard work, but it's informative work.
Not from ours, but no. Thank you. And I don't think, I don't think from early college either. He leaves his work to his pocket.
Good evening. I'll start off by saying I'm a math guy like Mr. Clark, and I kind of have this set up in a very quantitative way. I try to lay it out so it's easy to follow. As far as the numbers go, and I even use some Christmas colors in the second slide to kind of lighten it up a little bit. That's about as light as I get, I suppose. But as we go on, we'll talk a little bit more about some of the qualitative stuff that we're doing at Washington High School, some of the culture pieces that connects all of it. Ms. Walker said earlier about teacher placement, things like that. Sometimes subjective, use these quantitative backdrops to make your decisions, but sometimes it's a little bit subjective. You got to kind of take a risk and see what happens when you go down that road. So I was about to say next slide. I don't even know where I'm at. Okay, in this first slide, these are our last 3 years achievement indicators. And as you'll see, you can kind of see that first column, 15-16, was my predecessor. That was our baseline. In that next year, that was my first year in place. Kind of watching things, not knowing the teachers very well. I lost 2 science teachers in that summer when I came on board. Had to replace them with 2 lateral entry teachers who worked very hard for me, but sometimes when your experienced folks leave, you have a little bit of a drop, and I think that's what we experienced in that first year. In our Math 1 proficiency, we went up in that first year. We worked very hard with teachers, and I'll break it out in just a second a little bit more. But as you can see, as it goes across, we're trending upwards with our EOC proficiency, and I'm very happy with this data. In that first year, we were where we were. We analyzed it, came back to the table, redrew things as a team, and this is where we're at. And we were at +7, +9, and +7 across our proficiencies, and I was very, very happy with that, especially biology, which I'll get to in a second. Like Mr. Clark said, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Kind of the bad here is the ACT. We're kind of working that out this year, and I'll talk about that in a second too. But that's our trend down, is the ACT proficiency and the ACT work keys. 4-year graduation rate going up just a little bit each year. We're doing probably more with it this year. Policy within our own policies at a school level, looking at the CGR report, working with Ms. Lilly and things like that to try to iron out some of the kinks in that to get that up just a little bit, as well as some other things with the students. Passing Math 3 has remained constant, no issues there. When you look at our EOCs, again, I'm very happy with the way we're trending here. There were some strategic moves put in place at the school level. English 2, after that first year, we lost 2 teachers. Made the decision to place a very good English teacher that had never taught English 2 from my building, and another in-county transfer that came in and was very good to have on board with us, to round out that 3-person team again with one experience from before. And we saw a good bit of growth with English. We did a lot of PLC work, and I must say with my English department, really with all of them, but with the English department, they were PLCing without me even showing up. I mean, they were talking about data, where they were going, what they wanted to do. They worked very hard together to get that going. So the PLCs were run a lot by the teachers themselves. Master schedule collaboration, that's in every one of these. I think it's important. I think student placement is important. It's kind of you need your teachers on board to identify what students should be in their classrooms, what students don't interact with other students very well, what students may have already passed this class and shouldn't be in there, and so on and so forth. So with the master schedule, we try to have that out at Washington before the summer. Sometimes that's a tough endeavor, but we try to have it out before the summer so that the teacher can review their rosters. And I send them out a form and I say, look, let me know how your roster looks, how should we do this, and if there's any student that shouldn't be in there, let me know, justify it. It's not a dislike thing, it's a strategic placement. You've had this student before, you taught them last semester and they did not do well with you. Or they don't interact with Johnny well and he's in the same class. Or they do interact with Johnny well, which is also bad for that class because they're just going to get things going. And so, what kind of ideas there? So try to get the student placement well in advance of August so we can have everything in place. And so that's the master schedule piece all the way down. With Math 1 proficiency, just like some of the other high school folks are saying, utilization of that foundations class. Now, we went back this last year, and our counselors are talking to P.S. Jones about those Math 1 kids coming up that are good students that just didn't take Math 1 in 8th grade. They're going to recommend them to take semester long. So they're in the semester long class. Everybody else will go in the year-long foundations and then Math 1. One of the things that was going on before I came on board was that folks that were in foundations that did not pass that course were still pushed on into the EOC course. So, and if you've been around for a little while, you know that Algebra 1, Math 1 is a huge inflection point for mathematics. In order for you to succeed in Math 2, geometry strand, whatever strand you're on, you have to be successful in Math 1. So if you're taking foundation students who do not do well and pushing them through to the next level, you're not only taking a hit strategically with your school, you're setting them up for failure at the next level. So when the students do not pass foundations, we try to get them back into another foundations course or an advanced foundations course where they're still working those same pre-topics before they go into Math 1. Again, master schedule collaboration, one thing I didn't mention earlier, trying to get all our teachers the same planning. Last year, that worked out very well with English 2 having same planning, Math 1 having same planning. Biology only had one teacher. I'll talk about that in a second. But very important pieces to keep everybody talking and moving forward. Biology proficiency. At Washington High School, when I came on board, we had 9th and 10th graders taking biology. If they failed it, they were put right back into biology again and again and again. And so what I did was I moved biology back to 11th grade. So I want the students to have at least 2 science courses under their belt before they take that biology course. It also gives them a time to mature so that they're actually taking that material seriously when they reach that level. By moving it back to 11th grade for this previous year, we had no honors courses. All of those folks had already taken it. We had only a few sections of biology. So they were all standard courses. The one teacher who grew these students, +7, did that all with students who worked very hard for her and did a lot of stuff, but really made growth in that proficiency area, and I think that's huge. As Mr. Clark said earlier, we don't have, I wish growth for biology would count, but it doesn't count for it. I think we'd had a little bit more there as well overall. ACT. Okay, this is my big, it seems like I've been talking a lot already, but this is my big talking point. ACT has been trending down. We really have not done a whole lot with ACT over the past few years. We've had teachers working with the students in classroom, giving questions. We've done words of the day on the board and little things like that to keep them active, but we really have not taken a sustainable approach to how we're going to do this at Washington High School. As I've talked to principals in the county, outside of the county, and asked them, what do you do for ACT? I get some good answers, and I get pieces and parts. But what we're really looking to build is a sustainable long-term program with ACT, something that not only is for just 11th graders right now, but is for 9th, 10th, moving up into 11th and pushing them forward. When you look at JROTC, I mean, you got ROTC scholarships that are hinging on this, ASVAB correlation. You've got, what does it take in an ACT score to get into ECU? Students don't know that kind of stuff. So if we start talking to them about this in 9th grade, then we're a whole lot better off with their mind frame when they take the test. So that's what we were looking for. So right now we've got flex period 1 day a week. We run them into homerooms. We work with them with, I brought this book, a free book from ACT. Costs us nothing. We ordered 900 of them. And we're going to start using that in the classroom. Now, I don't foresee this year being huge changes with the ACT, but this is our building of the program in moving forward. So I hope in the next couple of years we'll see some changes with this. Same with work keys. Grad rate. So, like I said, we're working policy-wise at the school, making sure that we keep our kids in school, make sure that we're counseling, we're calling parents, letting them know about grades, working with Ms. Hamill. If we've got some kids who are working real hard and just not getting there, maybe pathways is a good direction for them. Certainly not our goal, but sometimes that's the way it goes. So we're working with this with our graduation rate. And this is my favorite slide. I was very happy with what the teachers at Washington High School were able to do over this past year. We were a D school when I took over. We were a D school after my first year. We are now a C school. And our growth and achievement was plus 12 points. Growth was plus 18. School performance plus 13. Again, I was very proud of the teachers with what they're doing in the classroom with these students. I think, and I've got it down at the bottom there, but I think that our teachers are doing a very good job teaching. A lot of the conversations that we have in school are, it's not that, you can teach hard every day and still you get to the end of the year and you're like, how did the student get a 1 on this test? But when you look back, how closely were you aligning what you were doing in the classroom to the actual curriculum that was being tested at the end of the year? So a lot of the conversations that we have are about curriculum and how are you setting up your goals for each objective within the curriculum and how do we do that pushing forward? When we do walk-through observations, another thing that we're looking for all the time is, are you teaching bell to bell? Are you utilizing that time wisely? Are you engaging the students or using higher order thinking questions throughout your day? If you're not, there's not a paper going in your file. We're going to have a conversation about it. Sometimes you walk in there and you take down questions and you're like, boy, all they had was level 1 questions. So you go back and talk with them and you say you had level 1 knowledge questions all day today. But at what point in that unit are you going to get to the higher order thinking questions? And that's the conversation you want to have with them. Maybe they haven't thought that far forward, Maybe they have and they let you know, but that's what I want to do with them. That's the qualitative piece. That's the piece, kind of the fluffy piece. It's not the data, but I think is very important. And that's really, I have a fancy slide, but, but that's really the end of my spiel. So are there any questions?
I have a question that I struggle with. Can you take a minute and explain to us what's involved with the ACT work keys?
Sure. What we're doing each week, so we have a flex period in between first and second. They go to a homeroom period, so the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. Each grade level is working out of this book, doing a little bit with each section. So we're starting kind of late because we're still building this plane as it flies. But for instance, next week when we do our flex, they're going to do the English section. So the teachers are going to go over the English, how many questions there are, just a little bit of information on it, then they're going to give them a chance to work some of the problems for the remainder of that 25-minute period. And our goal is to get them to understand, I think some of the other high school principals talked about, is to understand the nature of the test, right? Don't spend 5 minutes reading the directions. You already know the directions. You've practiced this 100 times in our flex period. You know what, in the English section, what no change means. You don't have to sit there and analyze it and think through it. You know what it means, and now you can really focus on the word instead of focusing on the format of the test. So that's the direction we're going in with this. And like I say, this year, we're not going to get through all the sections with it, but hopefully that we'll give them enough that it'll help them a little bit and get them over the edge. I talked about it a little bit in the slides, but I didn't really go over the data. But we have pre-ACT data, which you can break up into your bubble kids, your kids who already had a 17 or better, or your less than 14s. And we tried originally to kind of break those apart and work with them, but logistically it was a huge challenge, which is hence why we went back to the homerooms to work with them. So I hope that answers the question a little bit.
I appreciate all this data. It just overwhelms us a little bit because we don't look at it every day.
Well, you need time to have to look at it.
Yeah, that's right.
Any other questions?
Appreciate all you do.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I might come with you strong. I think my knee needs to stretch out.
Well, the good news is that now you get a break from the same kind of data because we're measured on a very different scale. The Ed Tech Center is measured under the North Carolina Alternative Schools Accountability Model. So as you can see in your presentation, we're under option B. And option B is what was called option C for last year. They've just changed the way the model looks. So there are three major components, and the first one is student persistence. And that student persistence says how many of your students are staying enrolled in any North Carolina school. So if they're leaving you, or they're being enrolled somewhere else. Doesn't matter where in the state, as long as they're enrolled somewhere else. That's 20% of our score. The three major components that make up the second part of our score, which is also 20%, include all of the EOGs, EOCs, ACT work keys, math course rigor, the 4-year cohort, and the 5-year cohort graduation rate. You'll see here, we don't have a whole lot of scores here because if you have less than 10 students, you get an asterisk. If you have 0 students, you have 0 students. This year we have 82 students today. And that is an all-time high for mid-year for Ed Tech. We started out with 60 Pathways students at the beginning of the school year. We have at least a whole classroom full that came from Washington High School.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Spoiler alert, they came from Washington High School.
Swinton and I go way back. So, but with that said, those students are being successful. And you can see from our data that we're all a bunch of zeros there until 2017, 2018, and then you see some growth happening because the school's continually improving. Our ACT work keys and our ACT are really low because we often don't have anyone take it. They've taken it at another school before they got to us, or they're at a freshman or sophomore level and they're not taking it. So, you know, like I said, short presentation. This is where we're working on things. We're providing support and guidance to prepare them for college and careers. I have a lot of new people this year. I'm new. School counselor's new. We had an EC teacher that was new, and she's leaving. We'll have someone new starting in January. Had a new math teacher who's certified and killing it. She's really working hard, doing a great job. I'm super impressed with her. I'm expecting good things from her. We also will have a new data manager starting in January, and we'll have a new facilitator in our distance learning, online, and credit recovery lab. So with the personnel changes that we're having, I think we're moving in a positive direction. We have that school counselor that is really doing a fabulous job. She is finding all kinds of resources within the community, and she's meeting with the students and talking to them about their future plans. I don't know if you saw in the paper recently that we had several that got scholarships from BCCC to do some continuing ed classes. Have one testing right now as we speak for the CRC so that he can continue in an apprenticeship program. So those things, she's done a really good job of working in conjunction with BCCC and putting some good things in place for them. Math course rigor basically says, are you offering rigorous math courses? We offer the same thing that is offered at any other school in the county, in the comprehensive high schools. Even though we're different, we're offering the same thing. And the only teacher I have in the school that's not teaching multiple disciplines in one period is my math teacher. I made sure that she had Math 1, Intro to Math 1, Math 1, Math 2, and Math 3 in separate periods, so she doesn't have a Math 2 and Math 3 student in the same classroom. Because we saw the most need there. So you can see our math course rigor, those scores are good. And then our 4-year graduation rate. Went down a little bit last year, but we had 53 out of 77. If you compare the numbers, you see 11 out of 15 was really good, 19 out of 27, not as good, 53 out of 77, still doing good. We're hoping to have even more. It looks like if we have them all complete as they should, we should have 23 mid-year graduates in January, if they do everything they need to do. We still have attendance issues, and that's something that we have to work on. That's one of our goals. Our 5-year graduation rate actually went up, because it's easier to get them to graduate in 5 years than 4 when they come to you and they're already a year behind. So that's our setting. We take the kids that haven't been successful anywhere else, and we try to do the best we can to make them successful, to help them become employable, to get them in the military, to get them in a continuing education situation so that they can be successful. We're developing lessons and units of instruction in a way that they haven't been done before. I just did a staff development yesterday and said, you know, I've been here for a semester, and I kind of watched and saw what you were doing. And now I'm going to need to see you do a little bit more intensive planning. I'm going to need to see you using data to drive instruction. You can't be successful if you don't know where you're going. You have to measure what their current level is, decide where you need to take them and how you're going to do it, and then assess them again. And if they aren't meeting that goal, then we're going to have to remediate. So looking at pacing guides, curriculum resources, and the North Carolina standards, and asking them to use data-driven instruction. It's not good enough to give them just whatever. You have to give them your best. So the third of the 3 major components, which makes up 60% of our score, is the school growth. And that's measured using EVOS. It measures the progress on the EOG and the EOC assessment data. And it also generates an index value, which is converted to a score on a 100-point scale for our school accountability. Our 3-year calculation is the current year plus the 2 previous years. Schools using this model often have small numbers of students in a single year and may not have enough data to measure each indicator. So ours is based on 3 years versus just 1 year. So we have enough to make those 100 points available. Our total score for this year was maintaining. So we met growth, which is the good news. And we hope to continue doing that. Maintaining indicates a change between a negative 2.9 and a positive 2.9 compared to the previous year. So the 2014-15 year was the baseline year for us. And we're meeting, which is good. So our school improvement goal that supports this is that we'll develop and implement a consistent, intentional, an ongoing plan to support those student transitions from grade level to grade level, and that we will work with the BCCC for the Career and College Promise courses and also those apprenticeships and continuing education as the students are eligible. So we're giving them every opportunity that we can to work with industry partners and put them in apprenticeships when they're not college bound. Any questions for me?
I know you addressed the the attendance policy? Where do you feel like you are in not the attendance policy, but the attendance issues? Where do you think you are on an average day with your attendance?
I couldn't give you an offhand percentage on attendance.
You think you're getting maybe at least 50%?
Oh, yes. I think we're getting at least 50%, because what we have is we have certain students that are only coming for first period, and we have some students that are only there for first and second, because they only need 1 credit or they only need 2 credits.
Right.
And then we have some that finish credit recovery in their credit recovery classes, and we give them an open block. Okay, you're done with credit recovery. We're not going to keep you here all day long and just let you watch the paint dry on the walls. That we just can't do that. So we let them go so that they can go to that job, that after school, help their parents, watch the children, see the little ones get off the bus, whatever's necessary. So it's hard to judge based on what you see in a classroom, because our English classes I think are the best gauge for that, and they are packed full. So I think the kids are coming to school more now than they have been, and we're looking at incentives and rewards. We're doing PBIS. We're a green ribbon school from last year, and we're continuing with those PBIS rewards this year, and attendance is part of that. They have to find school fun too. And one thing we're doing next week, if y'all want to see something really fun, stop by. We're doing a Christmas Spirit Week, and they get to dress up like a Spirit Week for next week. So that's an incentive also to come to school and have some fun. We're doing a decorate your door contest for the teachers, and the classroom that has the best one gets a pizza party. Tomorrow we go on a PBIS trip to the movies for any student that hasn't had out of school suspension. So we're trying to do everything we can to make it an enjoyable environment, even though it's an alternative school, and there's some kids that are alternatively placed because of their behaviors. When they exhibit good behaviors, we have to reward that. I made parent phone calls this afternoon to say, this student did a great job. She's been coming to school every day this week. She's worked really hard. She's gotten caught up. I call you when she acts up, and I just want to make sure that I'm going to call you when she does a good job too. So I think that's making all the difference. Our morale, the teacher morale, the teacher encouragement piece is really big as well. And so we're moving in a positive direction. Any other questions?
You got a tough job, we know it.
Well, it's tough, but it's fun because you get to see progress, and that's what it's all about. Are we making a difference?
I hope so.
I hope so too.
Thank you. Last but not least.
Yes, excuse me for being late, but I didn't feel like I would watch them. So I said I'd come in just in the nick of time, but I've enjoyed the presentation so far. Of course, I'll be speaking on the elementary level more than the, of course, we've heard a lot of high school, but of course, I'm from John Cotton Taylor. We're a little bit different and unique in the sense that we are just a second and third grade school. We serve about 525 students each day, about 265 in each grade level. So we have about 13 teachers this year at each grade level. So we have a lot of students and a lot of teachers, but 2 grade level makes it interesting, and so we're very fortunate in that sense. Another unique aspect to us, we get our data from just our 3rd grade. Our 2nd grade does the in-class assessment, but we get just our data just from our 3rd grade. And we get our school proficiency data comes from our reading and our math EOGs, of course, combined and averaged out with just our 3rd grade. And our school growth is unique in itself as well. Again, just 3rd grade, and we get it just from our reading data from a school growth perspective. So we go from a beginning of grade test, which is just a baseline that we give, a test that we give in the early September. We get a baseline for our 3rd grade students and their reading skills, and it compared to the end of grade test that we've all heard of, the EOG that we give out in June. And we just take a change in the achievement levels, and that's taken into account for our school growth. This is in 3rd grade, of course, the first time that these students are ever taking standardized tests. That presents a challenge in itself, but we do a pretty good job getting prepared, getting those students prepared for that. We do have 7 subgroups at Taylor. We have a Black, Hispanic, White, 2 or more races, economically disadvantaged, English learners, and student with disabilities. And last year we were able to test every child, which puts us at 100% participation in our testing. When we talk about school growth, we were excited to be able to say this year that Taylor was one of the 2 schools in Beaufort County to exceed growth this year for last year for 2017 and 18. So we're excited about that, but we're really excited and proud of our next slide that shows that we've been able to exceed growth for the last 3 years at Taylor, being the 16 school year, 17 and 18 school year. This is not an easy task to accomplish, so it just speaks highly to our teachers, at Taylor each and every day. They work hard on a daily basis. So we're excited to share that news with you. To go a little more in depth with the school growth, when we take our BOG, which is beginning of grade test, and we look at our EOG, we had 18% of our students proficient in reading at the BOG at the beginning of grade in September, and we were able to move from that 18% to 50.4% proficient in reading for our school growth. So we're excited about that, and I'll be speaking a lot about that, of course, that. I want to dive a little bit deeper into those numbers for you. When we take our EOG, our BOG and our EOG, and we put some numbers with those, and we look at our score levels, of course, level 1 and 2, the state recognizes levels 1 and 2 as being non-proficient, and levels 3, 4, and 5 as being proficient. Level 3 being on grade level, 4 and 5 being those students that are college and career-ready students. As you can tell, at our level 1, at the BOG in September, we had 139 students that scored at a level 1. We had 60 at level 2, and of course, we had our level 3s, 4s, and 5s at 11, 27, and 4. I was excited to see after the EOG was completed that we were able to cut those level 1s in more than in half and move those level 1s into those 2s, 3s, 4s, and 5 spots. Of course, we always want to move them into our level 3s, 4s, and 5s. And I honestly feel like when you take those numbers, we had 42 students at the BOG being shown proficient at levels 3, 4, and 5. And at the end of the EOG, we had 122 students show proficiency. So that was a great leap for us. Really, really impressed with our teachers when we look at level 4 and 5. And those students being our college and career-ready students. We had a big jump there at the EOG, so super proud of those teachers in that sense. They really worked hard, and that's reaching those higher level students. And sometimes those higher level students get pushed to the side a little bit just because we think they've got it, so we won't really push them. But we were able to push them to the point of really getting them to the achievement level that we are really looking for. Also wanted to share this information with you. This year, as we look at our beginning of grade test that we took in September, just wanted to compare those numbers for you. At levels 2, 3, 4, and 5, we've stayed pretty comparable from this year to last year. We see a little more increase in our level 1 students this year at the BOG, so we've got some work to do this year that we plan on getting done, but it'll just be, just want to take those, that's 30 more students at the level 1 spot as compared to last year, but with the growth that we're making, I feel like we'll be able to push those students to the 3, 4s, and 5s as well. To move away from school growth and look at teacher growth, we were really excited for our 3rd grade teachers. Of course, we had 14 teachers last year, and each teacher in the school was able to meet growth or exceed growth inside their classroom. So we had 12 teachers that met growth, and we had 2 that exceeded growth inside the 3rd grade classrooms. So super excited for them. When we look at our 2nd grade teachers, we had 13 2nd grade teachers. Now they are not, of course, evaluated in EVOS from our BOG to our EOG. They are taken from the in-class assessment. We do an EOY to a MOY, which would be a middle year, then to an EOY end of year. And that's how we get their EVOS data for our 2nd grade. We had 13 teachers, like I said, and we had 7 that met growth, and we had 6 that did not meet growth. But we have done some switching around in our 2nd grade staff to hopefully address those situations not meeting growth. As we move on to proficiency, I just put this chart together to show you a little bit of a 4-year trend comparison. Like we said earlier, our 2017-18 school year, we were at 50.4% proficient in reading. And as you can tell from the trend, we are staying right around that 50% mark for our reading proficiency. As you look at our math proficiency, we are able to do 64.7% proficient in 17 and 18 last year. And as you can tell from the 4 years trend that we have been able to increase our scores each year. Noting that in 16 and 17 and 17, 18 last year that we were able to retest our students in math. They were not successful on the first EOG math test that we did retest them. That did give us some help for proficiency. And unfortunately, this year, we're not going to retest those students due to the state changing the test up. So that'll be a little bit of a downfall for us, but we're going to work hard to see if we can go ahead and get that proficiency up before we have to retest. So if you look at the school proficiency as a whole with the math and reading combined, we finished the school year at 57.3% last year, being a C school. As we looked at our data, we looked at our subgroups, of course, and we found that one of the subgroups that did not perform as well as we would like would be our students with disabilities. And so we sat down and thought, what do we need to do, and let's make sure we're doing the right things for those students. Of course, we're going to follow in the goals and service times of all those students with disabilities, their IEPs, which is their individual education plans inside their EC classrooms. We do an AR, which is Accelerated Reader. It's a school-wide reading program that we do, and that helps with students with disabilities as well as our regular students or our other students inside the classroom. And it's a school-wide, they may be reading on the first grade level, or they may be reading on the fifth grade level, but this gives them the chance to read at their level. They read books throughout the day, throughout the week, and take tests on them on the computer, and as they are successful on those tests, they're moving up each time in grade level. So it helps, or in ability level, so it helps them increase their reading as the year goes on. We also do guided reading in both our EC classrooms and our homerooms, regular ed classrooms. We do our web-based iReady, math and reading, and of course they're on those for 45 minutes a week in both reading and math. We do connecting math concepts in our EC classrooms for those students with disabilities. And we just started this year doing our NC check-ins. First time it's ever been offered for third grade, so we're starting that this year. Very interested in that data we're seeing. What I like about it most is we can take those NC check-ins and we can go back and we can reteach from those. So we're able to put that test back in the students' hands and the teachers' hands, and they're able to work with those students on exactly what they're missing, what standards, what strategies they need to use, what steps they're missing. So I'm looking forward to big things from the check-ins. Another strategy that we're using that we put in to effect a couple, maybe 3 years ago, is what we call a power zone inside our master schedule. And what this does, it gives us an opportunity to take a 45-minute block each day, and we're able to take all the students who need to go out for specialized instruction and let them go out of the classroom for one time in the day. And the reason it came about, we had a lot of students missing class, going out to speech, going out to EC rooms, going out to TIP, our enrichment programs, all at different times. So the teacher wasn't getting a chance to teach a core group of students all day. So we went, actually visited another school and saw this going on, so we incorporated it in ours. So what it does, it lets all our students go out to their specialized instruction, but in the same sense, it leaves about 6 or 8 students inside the classroom. This all starts happening in the summer when I do class lists, because I have to make sure there's enough students in each classroom that that the students that are going out are not too many in another classroom. So it's pretty strategic when we look at it that way, but it leaves about 6 or 8 students, which usually are middle of the road students, who are really our 2s and 3s that we want to push to those 4s and 5s, or those 2s to those 3s and 4s. And it leaves them inside that classroom for 45 minutes as well. And it gives our regular ed teacher a chance to really focus on their needs as the other ones are out getting their needs as well. The other purpose it serves is it kind of lets us double dip our students, because when they come back from that power zone, they're in that classroom the rest of the day. So they're getting a double reading math lesson, a double reading lesson, a double math lesson, social studies, science. So it lets them see the grade level work as well as the specialized instruction that they need. So that's been beneficial for us, and it's produced some pretty good results for us well. In that same time, our reading coaches take out our students as well, and they're taking out our bottom red students, when we talk about red students being our struggling students in reading, and we're doing what we're calling Reading Horizons. And I'm excited about that program because now Eastern's doing Reading Horizons as well, K2, so we'll do it at K2, and it works on our phonics piece of reading. So we're excited to be able to have that incorporated and have a seamless transition of that coming in throughout the next few years. The next, I just wanted to share this information because sometimes at Taylor we have in the last couple of years have seen some challenging behaviors from some of our students with disabilities as well as our other students as well. And I wanted to share this because we've really seen an improvement through our PBIS program. We incorporated this 3 years ago, and in the last 2 years, we've been able to be recognized as a green ribbon school from the state. And through this program, we've been able to do some different things, and we're really focusing on it, Taylor, rewarding positive behavior, not focused on the negative behavior. And it's really put a different vibe to our students, a different vibe to our staff. We really celebrate positive behavior through different things, through the PBS reward days and all those kind of things. And I think the next slide here shows how that's working for us. As you can see, in August, which would be the beginning of the year, we're comparing last year's office referrals to this year's office referrals. In August, of course, we had one compared to 4 this year. But if you'll notice, in September, October, and November, our office referrals have come down tremendously. And one of our big movements is, I tell the teachers, these students cannot learn if they're not inside your classroom. And so we're doing a big push to keep those students in the classrooms and not using out-of-school suspension as much. We'd rather see an in-school suspension where you have your work with you and you've got a teacher with you instructing. So we're excited about the PBS program and what it's doing for us so far. So we're looking forward to that to the spring where office world's decreasing as well. And that's all I got. Any questions?
That's great.
Yep, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Mr. Dunn.
That's the last of the presentation.
My goodness.
Okay, all right. Is that, and we have
We have 3 more for next week, and then we'll vote on the school improvement plans at that time.
Which 3 what 3 do we have now? Snowden's already been, Eastern?
We have Eastern, John Small, and Early College.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Those are remaining.
All right. I would now, thank you all very much. And thank you, high school principals that stayed to hear the elementary presentation. I'm sure Mr. Mitchell appreciates it. I now would like to entertain a motion to go into closed session.
I move that we go into closed session pursuant to General Statute 143-318.11A1 to prevent disclosure of confidential personnel files under General Statute 15115C-321.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thanks a lot for all that data. I mean,
Yes.
that's some real work.
Huddle.
All right, we're back. Are we ready?
I'm ready to go home.
Back in open session, and I need to entertain a vote that we approve our,
Motion to approve.
I didn't get it out.
Second.
Thank you, guys. Okay.
Forgot about it.
All those in favor?
Yeah, we had to do that.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Approve it for the league.
Now, if there's, are there any comments, Mr. Dunn, that we need to?
Yes, ma'am. Just 3 things I want to make the board aware of. 4 things, actually. Number 1, we want to thank Chevrolet. They donated the 2010 Chevy Aveo sedan to the Northside High School auto mechanics program for them to tear apart and put back together. And that was hauled up there this week. So we greatly appreciate Lee Chevrolet donating that. Want to make the board aware that one of our vendors that works with child nutrition, we're going to be starting in late January, early February, offering pizza at Washington High School. And instead of just talking about a small piece of pizza, we're talking about personal pizza on the regular line every day that can be substituted for a regular meal. It would also be free to all of our students. If it works out well, we're going to expand it to more schools, but we're trying it at Washington. So wanted you to be, if you hear kids talking about it, they're not talking about your traditional square slice. They're talking about an actual personal pizza that they can choose as opposed to whatever the lunch item of the day is. If you don't know, there have been some changes to our SRO assignments. Mr. Correa, Officer Correa, who was at P.S. Jones, who still remains at P.S. Jones, but has been promoted within the department. He will actually be replaced by Officer Meza, who was at Washington High School, and Officer Correa will be more of a floating officer, helping supervise all the SROs. Sergeant Zerniak will still be at Washington, so you have Zerniak at Washington, Meza at P.S. Jones, Correa floating amongst all the schools. We still have 2 vacancies, and I met with the folks from the Sheriff's Office, and they talked about what they're doing in terms of finding those final 2 folks. And then lastly, just as a reminder that Friday, December 21st is a 3-hour early release, not due to weather, but due to Christmas break.
All right, and we will have another meeting on the 18th.
Yes, ma'am.
Where we will
4 o'clock.
start at 4 o'clock.
Yes, ma'am.
Are there any board member updates?
We don't want
Make a
to set,
motion.
we're gonna set dates for January. We at least need to do that.
Well, I would like to go ahead and set our first meeting with for January, but since Mr. Cheeseman's going to be here on the 2nd, I feel like we need to consult him and make sure, I don't want to schedule a meeting without him, being aware.
Well, let me just throw this out here.
Did he
We-
give you some dates?
We will be out of school on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, so if we were to meet on the 8th, I don't know that there would be much of an agenda on the 8th. So, because we just haven't, we'll be closed for 16 days counting weekends. So
I
my
know
assumption
that.
is and I believe Mr. Cheeseman will also be out of town starting on the 9th. So I believe he's available on the 15th. If you wanted to set the 15th and then go figure out the second one from there.
Sure. If you want to set that as a tentative date, and I will make a point of talking to him
Okay.
before the 18th, so if that we need to make a change, we'll know about it before we leave for break. And for now, we'll keep that time, but we'll entertain, something
Sure.
different later. At 5:30?
Yes, ma'am.
The 15th at 5:30. Anybody have a problem with that?
I might not be here. I have a personal arrangement, I don't know how long it's gonna take, but.
Okay, and I'll know more. He may entertain something different, too, but you can just let us know. Anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor?
All right.
See ya on the 18th at 4 o'clock.